This is your Olympic hero and former WWE champion, Kurt Angle. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my guys, Clint and Noah. When it comes to covering sports, there is no one better. And believe me, that's true. It's damn true.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%.
The elite. Best of the best.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo! I'm the man. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
You know, when they talk about the elite. The elite. You ever see the elite? You're the elite. You are the elite.
You are now listening to the Elite Sports Podcast, brought to you by Vermeil Wines and powered by GASN Sports, the pinnacle of hard-hitting sports talk, featuring weekly expert analysis and top-notch interviews. And now, please welcome your hosts, Noah Gronnier and Clint Switzer.
Well, we certainly hope each and every one of you had a safe and healthy 4th of July weekend. I know I'm about 4th of July'd out myself, Noah, but that's what we do here on the Elite Sports Podcast. We keep forging ahead. We are rolling out the top-notch interviews as we do each and every week here. And Noah, this week, we are taking a little road trip down to Springdale, Arkansas to bring you our interview that we did for our upcoming documentary, Saturday Supremacy. We interviewed former Arkansas Razorback fullback and former NFL running back Peyton Hillis for the film in person at his home, and we thought we'd bring you some of that audio here on the podcast because it was tremendous to go down there and meet Peyton. Of course, everybody remembers him being here in Kansas City in 2012 and being the Madden cover boy in 2011 after rushing for over 1,000 yards in 2010. Noah, how's everything going? Excited to bring you this Peyton Hillis interview that we did. We just shot down there. Quick little jaunt down 71 South, down to Springdale, Arkansas. We had a nice little trip down there, wasn't it?
We did, a little under 4 hours. We got there. We got the interview done. It's going to be great. It's going to be in our film, but we wanted to bring you that as well here on this podcast. The video version can be seen. We'll have bits and pieces out that we'll deliver to you. But yeah, I mean, his 2010 first white running back to have 1,000 yards since Craig James of the old New England Patriots. And yeah, that season, he wanted to stay with the Browns after an injury-riddled 2011. Was even willing to take a team-friendly deal. They wanted no part of that. They told him to move on. And he kind of lost his love for the game and when he moved on to Kansas City. And, of course, that was a disastrous year with Romeo Crennel. So we'll get into all that and so much more with this great running back.
Of course, the big news around Kansas City surrounding Patrick Mahomes, a 10-year extension to his deal worth upwards of over $500 million. Noah, this is going to be something we delve into a lot deeper here in the coming weeks because we're going to be welcoming Patrick's agent, Lee Steinberg, to the show here. We're trying to get that scheduled right now. So we're going to be taking a deeper dive into this contract and kind of what it means and what some of the language and the numbers mean. But just upon first glance, this is a huge day for Patrick Mahomes, his family, for Lee Steinberg and Steinberg Sports, and certainly for the Kansas City Chiefs kingdom. Patrick Mahomes clearly wants to be in Kansas City. This was inevitable, and it's been, they started working on this, we believe, kind of a few months ago. We reported that, and the deal is done. And Patrick Mahomes now locked up well into his 30s now, which is kind of insane to think about. It's really more insane to think about how old we'll be when this contract runs out. But first glance, before we dive into this too deep, well, what is your thoughts on this new deal for Mahomes?
Yeah, it's a 10-year extension. He's got 2 years left on his deal, so he's going to be here for at least 12 more years before they work something else out. Man, this is huge for Chiefs Kingdom to have this quarterback not on a 5-6 year deal. You know you got him for the long haul. If you look at it, it really is a team-friendly deal. The base salary for him isn't much moving forward until you get deeper into the contract. You're looking, it's a lot of people saying $500 million. It's worth up to that if I know he's got incentives, $1.25 million if he every year if he's MVP, $1.25 million every year if he gets the AFC Championship game. So it can be worth up to that $503 million that you're hearing about, but more than likely it's going to be around the $477 million range. But, man, we got this guy locked up, the best quarterback maybe in the history of the league. So it's exciting times here in Kansas City.
What would you say to detractors? We saw Stephen A. Smith just overtly yelling at Sammy Watkins on ESPN's First Take this week. about how you can't build a dynasty this way. I don't really know what the alternative is here. Let the best quarterback possibly that's come out in a couple generations walk because you want to sign guards and running backs and receivers in the offseason? What would you say to detractors that say no quarterback that's ever been worth 11.8% of the team salary cap or more, aside from Steve Young, has ever won a Super Bowl? What do you say to the detractors? Because to me, I look down the list, Patrick Mahomes has done nothing but prove the detractors wrong. The footwork wasn't going to, convert to the NFL. No Texas quarterback from any Texas school has ever won a Super Bowl. No Big 12 quarterbacks ever won a playoff game. So all Patrick Mahomes has done is prove people wrong from the minute he stepped in this league.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is better than any of those quarterbacks with the big money tags that they've gotten. People are talking about Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. He's better than all of them. And, yeah, we're going to delve deeper into this when we do have that interview coming up with Lee Steinberg here in a few weeks. But, man, you look at this, and if you really delve into the numbers, it really is a team-friendly deal. We talked about the base salary numbers, the roster bonuses. The Chiefs are still going to be able to have the talent around him. Brett Veach is great at drafting. People want to talk about how the Packers haven't done anything since their Super Bowl and giving the big money to Aaron Rodgers. They haven't drafted well. They never drafted him a first-round wide receiver to pair with him. And so there's a lot there. Aaron Rodgers is egomaniacal. Patrick Mahomes is a humble guy. He's a great teammate. He's a leader. And this is a team-friendly deal, no matter how you want to look at it from the outside. If you just want to take a basic look, and $500 million, $500 million, everyone's going to leave. They're not going to be able to sign Kelsey, Hill, Watkins. They're just going to throw him out the door. His teammates are going to be upset. No, his teammates are supporting him. They're happy for him. And we're going to be able to keep signing and surrounding him with talent, especially through the draft and how great of a general manager and drafter that Brett Veach is.
We already know that Sammy Watkins' days are numbered here in Kansas City. We probably know that Chris Jones' days are numbered here. But the Kansas City Chiefs, for 30 years, for the entirety of my fandom, refused to do it this way. You had Steve Bono's and Elvis Gerbach's, and you had Dave Craig's, Steve DeBerg's. You bring Joe Montana in at the tail end of his career. And what did that ever get the franchise? When you finally hit, and did the Chiefs ever hit on this player, it is really a no-brainer to do what they've done, and especially the way Brett Veach has been able to work through this, that this whole deal was orchestrated by Steinberg Sports' Chris Cabot. From the beginning, this whole deal was orchestrated, Noah, to get the Chiefs to move up to 10, the right situation, the right coach in Andy Reid, the right GM and Brett Veach to believe in Patrick, to move up to 10th, to get him. This whole deal has been orchestrated from the beginning, and to see it come to fruition like this, I think we'll look back at it and see that this was one of the biggest stories, not only in Kansas City sports history, but in NFL history, the way that this was all pulled off.
The way this was pulled off, the way the amount of this contract, the richest contract in sports history. I mean, we set the market, but we set the market with the best quarterback in the game. Other people are going to have to come close to that, match that, exceed that with new quarterback contracts coming up, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, and they are not really near the quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is. So I'm more than happy to set the bar for quarterbacks moving forward with the best quarterback, a 12-year deal, and, I mean, you look at it, a team-friendly deal.
Till 2031, Noah. Hopefully there's football by then. Hopefully the world has returned, and we're gearing up for that, because right now we should be gearing up for SEC Media Days. We should be talking about training camp, but right now there's so much uncertainty that we are really committed to bringing you weekly interviews that you guys are asking for, that you want to interact with, and this week is no different with Peyton Hillis, and I'll tell you what, we're going to be bringing you that interview right after this. Bring a spectacular piece of Napa Valley right to your doorstep today with Vermeil Wines.
Former legendary Chiefs and NFL coach Dick Vermeil started Vermeil Wines back in 1999, but his undying devotion to bringing a taste of Napa Valley to the masses actually goes back generations.
Well, you know, it started as a hobby of making 150 to 200 cases of Cabernet, Jean-Louis Vermeil Cabernet, my dad's name and my great-grandfather's name.
Vermeil wines are grown in Coach Vermeil's hometown of Calistoga, California, at the top of Napa Valley, where the vineyards are over 100 years old.
Browse all the signature wine options or become an official member today at vermeilwines.com.
Choose from 3, 6, or 12 bottles and enjoy a 15% savings with shipments each February, May, and September. You'll also get access to exclusive offerings and events such as virtual wine tastings with Coach Vermeil himself, as well as member-only wines.
Try the Signature Club where you get 1 case per year, a 20% savings, 4 bottles of each Cabernet. These are the highest rated wines at $1 shipping all year.
To join, visit VermeilWines.com now or call 707-254-9881.
Use promo code ELITE for $1 shipping on 3+ bottles of wine. This will also apply to your first wine club order if you mention ELITE at sign up.
Well, Peyton, as we kind of get started off here, I mean, you're from Conway, Arkansas. Was it just a no-brainer to you when you decided to attend Arkansas out of high school?
You're from Arkansas. It's a real small state. You're an Arkansas fan. And so in my heart and my mind, there was no other place to go, but looking back on it, if I knew then what I knew now, things would have changed. Because there's a lot of things you should look at when you go to a college as far as, what offensive scheme are they running that's best suits your skills, who's the coaching staff, can you relate with them? And there's a lot of things that you could look at. But back then, being a Razorback was, like winning the Super Bowl if you're from Arkansas.
Well, Peyton, talk about your career at Arkansas. You guys played in the SEC championship game 2006 under Houston Nutt, and you were part of one of the greatest backfields in college football history with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones.
Looking back on it, it was something that it was rough for me for a long period of time there. I had issues with Coach Nutt and, was kind of the utility guy, playing a little bit of everything. Never really found myself to what my skill set was or what, they really used me for. I was kind of used for everything. Heck, even punt returns and kickoff returns. I was used for everything. But, the running backs I had in front of me, Darren and Felix, probably two of the best running backs that ever played the game as far as in the college level. And, Coach Nutt, overall, I think he is a great man. I think that he had a great heart. I do think that he kind of let things get away from him at the end just because of all the pressure with the Mitch Mustain and Gus Malzahn coming in during that time to where there was a power struggle. And it kind of separated the team from Coach Nutt's side to Coach Malzahn's side. And that really hurt the team during that time. And we really never had a quarterback. I really think if we had a quarterback like a Matt Jones a few years before that, oh man, I think that we could have won the national championship for sure. We never really settled on a guy. We always went back and forth between quarterbacks during that whole time and never just solidified one guy or another.
Well, in 2007, you guys beat LSU, who was the number 1 team in the nation at the time. And 3 days later, Coach Nutt resigns amidst controversy, and you guys wind up getting blown out by Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, a game I was actually at, by the way, and it winds up being your last college football game ever.
There was a lot of turmoil during that time because, I think Coach Nutt kind of saw his way going out, I think he wanted to kind of end on a high note. Beating the number 1 team, I think he knew he was going to get fired that next year. And everybody knew that. So when he quit, it seemed like he kind of quit on us during that time. And then Coach Herring came in and tried to coach us during the Cotton Bowl. But I think everybody, at that time it was all lackadaisical and crap. And Missouri came and played and beat the tar out of us. They did.
Peyton, you move on to the NFL. You're drafted by the Denver Broncos in the 7th round in 2008. Just being thrust into action, which sort of established you as a legit threat running the football.
It was definitely a God thing during that time. I remember going to Denver to play fullback and end up getting the starting fullback role right into the season, which was great. And that year, 7 running backs got hurt to where I get my opportunity. And, I showed out. And actually my coming out game as a running back was against the Cleveland Browns that year. And ended up winning us the game. And played a few more games. Had, 600-700 yards rushing with 4 or 5 games. And tore my hamstring. And when after that, I think it was if we won 3 more games or one of 3 games and the Chargers lost 1 of 3 games, would be in the playoffs. But what ended up happening was Chargers won all 3 games and we lost all 3 games. And then Coach Shanahan got fired. And me and Coach Shanahan were close. And I thought, if he wouldn't have got fired, my career probably would have been in Denver instead of at Cleveland during that time. But I remember that year we played against the Jets, and they hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher in 2 years, and Eric Mangini was their head coach. And I had 100-and-something yards rushing. And well, the next year comes about, and Coach McDaniels was the head coach and really didn't give me a shot. Next year he traded me to Mangini from the Browns because he saw the kind of potential in me to play running back.
Moving on to 2010, that's really when things started picking up for you as you were traded to Cleveland in 2010. You rushed for over 1,000 yards. You were on the cover of Madden. You were doing the shoot in Times Square with just thousands of fans, all the fanfare, and you were really establishing yourself as a legit NFL running back at that time. Just take us back to that time. What was it like for you?
It was crazy. I mean, from a small-town white boy coming from Arkansas, never really getting a chance to play running back, to being on the Madden cover, to be in the middle of Madison Square Garden, to, what show was I on? The David Letterman show. And then backstage, it was Chris Hemsworth back there with me, and we were talking for a while, and, we got on the show, and it was all so surreal, and it was all because of the fans of Cleveland that put me on there. I don't think that I really deserved it. I just think that it was, it was a blessing that the fans put me on there, whoever voted. And what was really crazy about it, that was the high note. And going into that next year, it was the lockout, and so everything got turned down. But I was never even after that year, I was never the guy. I was never going to be the guy that everybody looked at and said, he's going to be the back that I want. So it seems like I always had to fight from the bottom up. And after a while, it just got tiring after a while.
Well, Peyton, a la The Last Dance, the guys handing the iPad over to Michael Jordan and him reacting to what he was seeing. We're going to do the same thing here with you. We're going to show you a picture from your time in Kansas City, 2012. It's you with the face mask. It's like you're Bane from the movie Batman. We're just going to show you and get your reaction to this.
Still to this day, people always ask me about that face mask. Where did I get it, and everything else. And tell you the truth, I remember at Cleveland, they're so old school, and that's why I love them so much. But I remember the equipment manager at that time. He went in the very, very back of the room and pulled out that face mask. And he says, nobody's ever worn this face mask, and it's like 20 years old, 25 years old. And I go, you know what? I kind of like it because I came from Arkansas, and it looked like 2 tusks, on a hog. So I was like, yeah, dude, I'll wear that. And so it kind of took off from there. Then they said, you looks like Bane off Batman. And
what was it like for you being signed by the Chiefs back in 2012? Obviously, that team wound up really falling apart, going 2-14. There's lots of turmoil, a lot of things going on in the organization. Romeo Crennel's coach, Scott Pioli's the GM at the time, and they were both fired by season end, so things kind of got blown up at that point. But just talk about kind of what happened in Cleveland, why you weren't maybe offered a deal there, and you end up coming to Kansas City instead.
I just let them run with it. Cleveland never offered me anything. Yeah. And reason why I went to Kansas City, the only reason was Brian Daboll was offensive coordinator, which he was my offensive coordinator in 2010. But nothing ever felt right. It wasn't Kansas City. It was, I guess, more my mindset at that point. I recently got married, and, I felt like I got treated really badly by the Cleveland organization, and the fans turned on me. At a certain point, my family turned on me. It was a really bad time in my life. So, when I went there, I tried. It was just like being snake bit. I'd get hurt. Something would happen. We had this suicide with Belcher that year. Dwayne Bowe was in a contract negotiation. We had a lot of injuries on offensive line. I mean, it just seemed like we had a lot of talent on that team, but we just couldn't. I don't know. We just couldn't put it together.
Well, Peyton, as a former Chief and us here as fans, it's been 50 years since we won a Super Bowl, but we just did it in February behind the arm of Patrick Mahomes. So what have you seen out of him and the different arm angles and just the great quarterback that he is?
It was the perfect storm, I think. He comes into a team with a coach like Andy Reid with his scheme. He's had the Don McNabbs. He's had the guys that can escape the pocket, use their athletic ability and make plays. But he's also had very good options on the perimeter. And crap, he has one of the best tight ends in the game. And he had a good offensive line. And with that play action game, Andy Reid knows how to use him, and he's a very smart player. And he makes plays when you need to. Kind of like Russell Wilson, you know what I mean? And Russell Wilson's the same way. I think the game is totally moving that way, kind of because of, I actually think it's actually because of the Wildcat that we started at Arkansas.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, on offense, it's 10 versus 11 just because the quarterback. When you have that guy, quarterback, that can run the ball, make plays downfield, it sets up, more teams now are going the nickel and dime packages so they can contain them.
Well, tell us about your new venture into the podcasting world. It's called Moving the Change. You're talking Cleveland sports again. What has that been like for you, kind of re-engaging with the fans of Cleveland and doing this podcast and talking about sports again?
To me, it's kind of like a welcome home party. When Keith messaged me a few weeks ago and asked me to do all this, I was kind of hesitant at first because I remember when I was at Kansas City that year that I was there, we went to Cleveland and played them. And I remember in the stands, I saw people burning my jerseys. Wow. I mean, it was all kinds of stuff. And it hurt me deeply because that's where, I really felt like I needed to be. And when I was talking to him about it, I was like, man, I don't think I can go through that hurt again. But when I came back and I told my side of the story, it seemed like everybody said, we have closure. We love this guy being around. And, this podcast thing, they were into it. So it brought me new life for sure.
Well, Peyton, you graduated from Arkansas 13 years ago. What does a university mean to you today in this point in your life?
It doesn't mean a lot to me now, honestly. The past year and a half, 2 years, I've been trying to ask to be on the staff in some capacity to help, in any way I could. But they're not going back to the roots. They're not getting any Arkansas guys that actually care about the university. Not bringing coaches that, have ties. I know a bunch of coaches that I played for, try to get the head coaching job and they don't want them. The athletic director, no Arkansas guys. And, who's going to care more about the university than people that actually are from Arkansas that have played there and want them to win. And it seems like the more money you are, the dumber they are. Because if Arkansas, especially now that Missouri has came to the SEC along with Texas A&M, we used to get that talent from Louisiana, Texas, and Missouri around there. But now that since they're in the SEC, we're not getting that talent no more. So we really need to either do two things: start bringing people in that care about the university, or two, actually put some money into a head coach that is going to come in and win instead of these guys that you never even heard of.
Well, with that kind of being said, Peyton, what are your thoughts on current Arkansas coach Sam Pittman? Of course, he's been around a long time, coached at Arkansas as an offensive line coach before. He's been recently at Georgia. Just what are your thoughts on him? What have you heard about Sam Pittman?
I heard tons of great things about Sam Pittman. Never met him personally. I mean, I've asked to meet him. They won't even let me go in the door and meet him. And the thing is I think that, SEC football's different. It's different than any other kind of football that I ever played for. I mean, every team, every year, they can beat you. That things can turn around. And, when Petrino was there, the reason why he had so much success is because he didn't have the talent to compete with the Alabamas or the Floridas or the Georgias at that time, but he knew how to create mismatches. And we did have a good quarterback at that time. We haven't had one since. I think that, is really above average. And, he knew how to create mismatches because we didn't have the skill set.
Peyton, just talk a little bit about Fayetteville and Arkansas, and especially the football program. You've got the call on the Hogs. Just what makes Arkansas really stand out in the SEC?
It's unique for many reasons. I mean, the Razorbacks just, as their mascot, that's one. Two, calling the Hogs. Three, there's something special, like I said, to be said when you just have one D1 school in the state that everybody's going to love, that everybody's going to get behind. And that's special. And because everything you do, even winning a ball game to win the SEC West or even going further than that, everybody is going to know about it and everybody's going to enjoy it. Like, if Georgia wins, great. Either they're supposed to win, but you got the Falcons, you got the Braves, you got everything else. It's just a little bit different.
There's a lot of great experiences and road environments out there in the SEC, Peyton. What were some of your favorite road experiences and environments that you had while playing in the SEC?
Playing NFL, playing anything else, SEC especially, I mean, going into Florida, going into Georgia, going into Auburn, going into LSU, going into Tennessee. I mean, it is like being in the Roman Coliseum and, you can't hear yourself think or talk, and you see how crazy all the fans are about their team. And so, and then it's something to look back on and enjoy it. I mean, enjoyed it while I did, because you're never going to get that high. You're never going to get that momentum adrenaline rush like you did as you play in the SEC stadium.
Well, interestingly, many former NFL players we've spoken to, they say that they identify more with their college than anything else they've done, whether it be in the NFL or otherwise in their life. Can the same be said for you?
I don't identify myself with my college because it's kind of like they kind of forgot you. And I know that's sad to say, but in the South, football is everything. Up north, people are crazy about basketball. People are crazy about football, but it's down south, it's football. And everybody's going to love it. Everybody wants to do it. Baseball is actually big at Arkansas, but it's still football. You know what I mean? But, what's really funny is I played at Cleveland for 2 years and just had 1 year, and they have shown me more love. And I live in Arkansas, just one town over from Fayetteville, and they don't even know you're here. You know what I mean? Even though you want to be a part of it. You want to be a part of it. You want to help the team win. I just don't know what direction they're going in, and it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't think my opinion really matters.
Well, you've been retired for 5 years now. Obviously, you're doing this podcast. You've mentioned wanting to get into coaching. Kind of just tell us what else you have going on these days.
I should say, if I was going to be honest, I would say I was, with most things, I'm a guy that sees the glass half empty, then half full. It seems like, I try to volunteer at a couple of high schools around here, and you have to go through all these licensing and stuff that even though I have my degree to become a coach. But it seems like the coaches that are there most of the time never know anything about football. And you know what I mean? And that's high schools all over the country. It's a public school system, so, they don't look at it. So I thought, maybe I'll try college because, I think they would use what expertise I have a little bit more and stuff like that. But it's all just a good old boy system. And, if you're in it, great. If you're not, I mean, a funny funny thing, nothing against Coach McDaniels back in the day, but, you know, he was a good offensive coordinator, and he came in and he won a few games at first, but he brought his brother in, which was a high school football coach the year before, then kind of brought him in to be like a D-back coach, and during that year he was trying to teach Brian Dawkins how to play safety. I'm just like, that just doesn't look right, you know. And, you know, to me it's in this, and especially it's all about who you know, not about what you know, and that kind of hurts me a little bit with it. And I kind of gave up the coaching side, and I love kids, and I feel like I have something that I could teach them, but you know, this podcast is the only thing as of right now that's keeping me going, because like I said, when you play SEC football and play professional football, what else are you going to do that's going to give you that high, that's going to give you that adrenaline? And the only thing I can think about right now is actually getting back into Cleveland, talking about Cleveland sports, and engaging with fans, because that gives me new life.
Well, Peyton, do you feel like, and because of some of the things that have happened to you in your career, that you kind of create a distance between yourself and the game?
Most definitely. You know, I think it's because, I don't know if it's like this for most people, but you take your passion and your hobbies and you make them your profession, and then you end up hating it, you know, because, you know, like me, as you can see, I love to hunt, but I guess if I made a profession out of hunting, you know, you're making money out of it and you got to deal with people, it probably lowers your level of love for it, you know what I mean, than on most things. So, yeah, I think I have created a distance from it. You know, I don't think I've watched, you know, I may watch one Razorback game a year on TV, and I'll watch a few Cleveland games a year and stuff like that. But here recently, now that I get back into it with Cleveland, I'm starting to do all of it now. The baseball season opened back up, so it's giving me something to look forward to.
Well, kind of a follow-up to that, with the way you talk about it, do you feel like football has kind of done you wrong in any way, that it's kind of betrayed you in some form or fashion?
Well, no, not really on that side. I think it goes higher up than that. I think that, you know, when you look at baseball, you look at basketball, you know, you see these guaranteed contracts to where, you know, they'll offer you $200 million, you play 1 year, they cut you, you still get paid. And in football, a game where any play, your career could be over. You know, NFL is the judge, executioner, and the jury. And they, you know, you sign a contract, you put your name on a dotted line. You know, they have your marketing money. They have, you know, they own you for 4 years. If they want to cut you, they can cut you, but it's not like another job where you can go somewhere else if they want to pay you more money. I mean, they pretty much own you at that point. I guess I kind of get resentful of that just because you have no options. You can't really do what's best for yourself, and the NFL pulls all the strings on that side of it.
Well, there you have it, Noah, some of our audio excerpts from our interview with Peyton Hillis. We do have some of the video chopped up there on our website, gasnsports.com, if you want to check out some of the video. The rest, you're going to have to wait until the film Saturday Supremacy, which we are in post-production on now, the ultimate SEC football experience, which has been our labor of love for the past 2 years. We are just really getting going in inserting ourselves into the meat of that situation. So going to be very busy here in the coming months, but can't wait to do it. Can't wait to keep rolling out top-notch interviews. No, we have so much coming up that I would have to have literally written them all down. We got Jason Whitlock coming up. We got Lee Steinberg coming up. Former legendary college football coach Jackie Sherrill from Texas A&M and from Mississippi State. Eric Moulds coming up. Michael Clayton, former national champion and Super Bowl champion. So much coming up, Noah, that it is really overwhelming, and yet I am enjoying this so much to be able to keep rolling these out. Our fans love it. They keep coming back, and they keep asking for the top-notch interviews, and we are delivering them right here, are we not?
That we are. They're not only for our film Saturday Supremacy, they are for you here right on the Elite Sports Podcast. That's what we do. And you forgot to mention one, as of course you did, because there's so many. I would have had to have them written all out myself. But Walt Harris, also of Mississippi State, him and Eric Moulds were teammates. So we're going to have some good stuff there from him. And just a lot of Mississippi State, a lot of SEC. But that's what we bring you here as we are in post-production for our film. But we go all over. We've had the likes of Jim McNally on, a great NFL offensive line, legendary coach. We've had Wade Phillips on, Carl Peterson, Dick Vermeil. It's not just SEC as we roll through this film. We bring you all the top-notch interviews here and only here on the Elite Sports Podcast.